Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, I'm hoping to introduce all of you to something new to watch on TV, usually going week to week with something we're watching here, recaps and reviews, doing the heavy lifting for you all of trying to find your next addictive binge. In today's episode, eventually, there's going to be a pretty long conversation in which Darren and I have just watched, within the past week, the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, One Battle After Another. Darren's actually going to be on vacation with his family, so he'll be gone for the next week. However, Sona's still around, and we will be covering the next episode of Task, which is shaping up to be a very eventful episode next week. The current week's episode, if you've seen that recap, and that episode was called All Roads. Those all roads are leading to next week's episode, where all of these plot threads will be intersecting. The usual call to actions, of course. We love hearing your feedback, so email us, needsomeintroduction@gmail.com, or post your comments on Spotify, if you listen to us on Spotify, or on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your podcatcher of choice, so you know when our episodes become available to you. We'll be announcing our next set of series that we'll be following here on the podcast, now that we are approaching wrap-up of Task. Okay, I guess I'll start things off with The Lost Bus. So, of course, we are currently covering Task here on the podcast. From what I can see of the popularity of our Task episodes, this seems to be a very popular show. And, of course, brought to us by Brad Inglesby. Well, it turns out he's all over the dial. Of course, he made the Apple TV Plus movie, wrote and produced earlier this year, Echo Valley. And here he is again writing or co-writing The Lost Bus, based on a real incident of a bus driver who rescued a group of children during the fires of 2018 in California. And this is a tough review for me, or a mixed review, let's say. Matthew McConaughey here plays the bus driver, and America Ferrera, a little bit underused here, plays the teacher who's protecting these kids or shepherding them onto the bus and staying with them as they're hopefully being delivered to their parents. And it's funny because I think that the script in Task is definitely one of the strongest aspects, while and once again, this is co-written by Brad Inglesby, so I'm not sure what aspects of the script are his or not. But the flaw in this film, which is extremely tense, has incredible fire sequences. This bus basically trapped on a mountain full of children, and the panic, and you are very in the moment. This is Paul Greengrass, by the way, directing, who has explored other kind of in-the-moment traumatic historical moments like United 93, a very powerful film that is very hard to watch again, and Captain Phillips, another true story that is incredibly suspenseful. And here he is again in the same milieu. But of all those examples I've gave, excellent films, this one very much feels more like it's juiced up. The fire sequences are exceptionally well made. And of course, having a bus full of kids is instantaneously traumatizing and gripping as a viewer. But even if you don't know the details of the actual events of what happened here, it just feels false as you're watching it. And it turns out, if you do your research, that there's a lot of stuff that we see here that is really just silly, made to juice up the tension in what's something that is already terrifyingly tense. So the idea that we do need to see action sequences where the bus is like driving through flaming walls, which doesn't actually happen. It basically was just this terrifying trip through this fire, methodically trying to escape from the inevitable. And the screenplay needs to keep juicing. I mean, at one point, there's a looter who tries to steal the bus, understandably, someone desperately trying to get onto the bus so they don't die in the fire. Completely understandable. But the fact that, it's just silly and obviously feels like this is just added to pump up the tension, which, of course, as I mentioned, already incredibly tense. And it's also like the film conveniently has them in the middle of nowhere with nobody around on these deserted roads, and then suddenly turning the corner and being in the middle of a suburban neighborhood in bumper to bumper traffic with police around trying to clear it out, which is probably more realistic to actually occurred. And so it just feels very discombobulated, really feels like some of these elements are completely tacked on. The early scenes of this movie where they very quickly try to sketch out the personal stakes and these characters, rather than discovering who these characters are in the moment, they have some, again, very clunkily written scenes between McConaughey's character and his like very shrill and irritating wife, who seems to only care that she's going to miss her date, even as like the apocalypse is closing in on them. This is just, like I said, the script just doesn't work for me for large stretches. And yet, once the fire and the sequences where it's just this existential threat to everybody on that bus, and just putting yourself in the shoes of being the parents desperately trying to wait for your children, it's undeniably thrilling and technically very well made. But that's actually kind of where I think the film misses in me saying that it's thrilling. It truly is thrilling, but it feels more and more like you are watching the towering inferno, only it's laid out on a mountain pass that they're trying to drive down, rather than believably conveying the real stakes and the immediacy and tying in some of these themes into the moments in the film, rather than just having these very expository and clunky dialogue sequences to flesh out and create stakes that honestly don't matter. I don't understand why we have to have all this background on what a loser this guy is, by the way, not true to life, and how he's trying to redeem himself to this ex-wife or this. It's such a plot contrivance and also kind of a stereotypical plot point, when anybody who's sitting down to watch this movie knows that the juice is in this guy on this bus trapped with these children, and we just want to get there. So why are we wasting this time on this other stuff? It really bothered me. It took me a really long time to start to get into this film, despite some of the really strong aspects. And I don't understand how Greengrass, his responsibility obviously in making the film and partially writing the script, where you think about Captain Phillips, for example, so elegantly puts you in the moment. All the stakes of the situation and all the character development comes out of that situation itself. It's a very lean and very well constructed film compared to this very strangely lumpy and only partially successful film. So take that as you will. If you want to see a really riveting firefighter film from the recent past, I've already recommended it, but Only the Brave, from Joseph Kosinski, the film he made right before Maverick and now F1. And incredibly, if you want to see an incredibly technically proficient firefighting film that I think works much, much better than The Lost Bus. But as I mentioned, if you turn it on and you forgive it its shortcomings, The Lost Bus also will deliver some truly terrifying fire sequences. Okay, let's transition over to the main topic for this week. Here's my conversation with Darren, where we break down the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, One Battle After Another. In today's episode, we will be discussing primarily One Battle After Another, which just opened this past weekend, and we all got to see it. My sister just saw it yesterday, too, and we talked about it just this morning. So a lot of feedback on this film, which is not that big of a box office hit, by the way, but from the point of view of people that I know who follow movies, this is such a huge event for the year. So we did want to discuss it here. As usual with these conversations, I am joined by my co-host, Darren.
Yeah, g'day, Victor. Yeah, it reminds me of when Oppenheimer came out, that it was just this director making a signature kind of film, and everybody goes to see it, but maybe not to that extent because there's no other Barbie movie to see opposite One Battle After Another.
The other thing, I never got around to finishing this point because I got digressed on the Coen brothers last week, as I want to do. When I don't prep my conversation, my brain will just go in 10 directions at once. But I was listening to my conversation, and the point I brought in the Coen brothers as, not only because they are so amazingly technically proficient, they also write their own material like PTA. They also, every Coen Brothers film is a film noir, and PTA minimally has noir elements to every one of his films, if not overtly noirs, although some of his films arguably are explicitly noirs. So there's that overlap there. But the thing I wanted to circle back to was exactly this point, that this is going to obviously be PTA's most financially successful film. But the most the most amazing thing to me about the Coen brothers, who I watched from a very early, pretty much from their very first films, is that possibly, or not possibly, definitely because of them working on a particular budgetary scale, their films were always successful and occasionally massively successful, right? The Western I'm thinking of.
No Country.
No Country. Yes, absolutely. A huge hit, obviously. But
True Grit.
True Grit, massive hit, like $300 million globally, like a massive success. And No Country for Old Men, another huge success. Plus the George Clooney films, the Oh Brother, We're Out There soundtrack, which has sold over 10 million copies, like a phenomenon in and of itself. So they have intersected. Oh, and of course, Fargo, which was just a modest success in theaters, but then a huge success on home video. And the most relevant point of all of that is The Big Lebowski, which when it came out was a very modest success. And it came after Fargo, after they got all this Academy Award attention. And people kind of scratch their head and go like, wow, that was a weird follow-up for them. It was kind of considered a flop at the time. But there was something that was written up about how that is one of the best-selling DVDs of all times. So the reason I bring all this up is because of their modest budgets, they have had repeatedly some massive, culturally significant and financially successful films, unlike PTA. PTA's films, honestly, they break even at best, and some of these films have lost money. So I do find it really interesting that when he puts out a movie, it's such a big deal because he's obviously not a Tarantino, whose movies makes hundreds, $400 million or so when they make a movie, like true cultural events, even in the mainstream. Not even like the Coen brothers that are hit and miss, but like sometimes their movies become huge, but it takes 5 or 8 years for them to, get a cultural foothold. None of his films have really crossed over. Maybe Boogie Nights a little bit, but maybe There Will Be Blood also, by the way, not a big success in theaters, but eventually a little bit. But like movies like The Master, that's not a successful film. Licorice Pizza, not a big financial success either. So it's interesting that he has such a following. Not that box office matters that much. It is just, for example, in the past week, just the fact that so many people I know and just the culture at large has been talking about this movie incessantly. And it's just, at best, this movie will, break even, I think, at the box office.
Well, I saw it did about 20 million or something on the weekend, but I heard a rumor that it costs up to $150 million. I mean, is that true?
Yes. So it was greenlit. This is very interesting. I mean, if you follow these things, it was greenlit at $115 million, which was obviously by far PTA's biggest box office or budget, I should say. So, the biggest risk. But of course, he has stars in it. So very different type of endeavor. And it has action and etc. It definitely has elements that can be crowd pleasing. And then it opened with over 20 million in the US and even better overseas. It has fantastic word of mouth. So I'm very curious to get your reaction to how the audience reacted to this in a moment. So it's done very well so far. And hopefully that word of mouth, like, at a smaller scale, like Sinners or something like that, will leg out and have a long run. And of course, the awards, if it actually wins the Academy Award, and it definitely looks like the front runner at this moment, that that adds huge value long term to it. But yes, so the budget supposedly has been quoted at as high as $170 million. But with some tax breaks and such, Warner Brothers announced that and of course they may be fudging the numbers themselves, but they announced that it cost about $140 million. I think just under that with the tax breaks they get from California. But even at $140 million, this thing needs to make, at $250 million, let's say, before it hits home video. to break even, and that includes, like, and I'm baking into that if it wins awards and has a very long tail. But this could be a cultural movie, and I think that's where we might set things up. It doesn't really matter if the film loses some money in even eventually. If the thing becomes like the type of film that people watch for years and years, and I would say there's a chance that this becomes one of those films. All right.
Interesting.
So let's get into it a little bit.
Let's do it.
I have many, many things to say, but let me just start with, before we get into any spoilers and get into any detail, I've wrote a review for this. I'm probably going to read it here because I spent a lot of time writing that review, by the way. So each sentence kind of encapsulates something I want to expand upon. So I can almost use it as a framework for the conversation. But before all of that, you told me last week you're going to go see this with your wife. How did you like it? How did she like it? How did the audience react to this? What's your general opinion?
Okay, so yeah, I'm a massive fan of P.T. Anderson, and as soon as I start seeing these 5-star reviews come out, I was very interested in seeing this film. The cinema was full, which was great. On I think it was like a Sunday afternoon. My wife did ask me before we went, how long is this movie? And I was like, I think it's a couple of hours long. I don't know. Turns out it was almost 3 hours long. And if I knew that, I probably would have gone into it a little bit differently. And just after the 2-hour mark, my wife was looking at her watch going, this is not even close to wrapping up. And we've got a while to go. But I must admit, I was so into the film that I did not notice the running time at all. And I was just wrapped up in the story. And yeah, so sorry, what was your question? My overall, I love the film. I thought it was definitely a little bit uneven in parts, and I'm going to say the worst thing, the criticisms up front is the score sometimes just really unnerved me. Either like the single drum beats that just kept going on and on, or the single piano just kept going on and on. I think it's Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead who does the score, who has done the score for other P.T. Anderson movies. So that was a little bit, I thought it was a little bit off-putting in parts, but the adventure, the action, the car chases, the slowest, straightest car chase in the history of cinema is one of the greatest scenes of car chases ever filmed. Absolutely amazing. Sean Penn is ridiculously good. And I was talking to my wife afterwards. I was like, Sean Penn, I haven't seen him in ages. And he comes out and does this role. She's like, what are you talking about? That was Sean Penn. She didn't even know. She didn't even realize. He was stunning. And I thought it was great that Leonardo DiCaprio didn't play one of these flashy leading man characters. He was almost not a leading man until the second half of the film, and I just enjoyed his kind of bumbling dude-like persona, just because of his love for his daughter. And as a father with a daughter, that hit me, especially towards the end, near one of the climactic scenes. That definitely hit me in the heart. And so, yeah, what a ride. What a filmmaking extravaganza. I just love, some of it wasn't that flashy. Some of the camera work in terms of past films of his, very flashy. Whereas this one it just seemed to serve the story. And also I really loved Benicio del Toro's character as well, whereas he's like almost the moral center and just the calm lake in amongst this just cacophony of sound and violence and trouble. So yeah, that's what I thought of it.
And how did the audience react to this? I mean, one thing, it's so funny. I've had multiple conversations about this film and keep forgetting to bring up the fact that it's hysterically funny. My audience laughed out loud aggressively throughout this film.
There were moments when I was the only one laughing in the cinema and I was cracking up. Especially DiCaprio when he just couldn't remember this bloody password.
That dialogue is incredible. Every time he's on the phone, everything with the phone, by the way, every time he's on the phone with this comrade Josh is hysterically funny. And but not only that, then like he has this G1 phone with a charger that obviously this thing's not been charged in a decade, and then he just wants to have an outlet, and he cannot get more than like 10 seconds. And then when he finally plugs it in, after being like shuffled around from one location to the other, he's so proud of himself. He's like, "It's charging, it's charging." Oh God. But
yeah, I did notice the audience go in and out during the film. I did notice that quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, there was plenty of laughter, even though I was one of the only ones laughing in some bits. I think the audience loved it. I think they really enjoyed the ride. Yeah, but so I really want to see it again, but I don't know the situation. I think I need to see it in the cinema again.
Yeah, I saw this in IMAX, and I think I mentioned this to you via text that this is the same thing that happened to me when I saw Oppenheimer, in the fact that everybody's like, you got to see it in IMAX, you got to see it in IMAX. So I saw it in IMAX, and this is Oppenheimer now I'm talking about, and it's like there's this explosion in Oppenheimer. That's the big showy moment that you need the IMAX screen for, and maybe some of like the massive vistas. But I'm like, okay, why did I see this in IMAX? But I appreciated it in IMAX for sure. And what it was that was so incredible to me was just seeing the human face, that enormous on the screen. And when people can actually act, and there's like no, it's so interesting. You probably have some experience acting before. And when I was making films and such in film school, that getting someone to just be natural in front of the camera is so difficult. And the idea of having these people on this giant screen with these cameras just inches from their face and being so present, but not only that, like you think about, I mentioned to you, like Sean Penn has this like tick with his mouth when he's talking, and he basically doesn't want to be talking. He's so awkward. And he does this thing where his mouth is just like twitching as he speaks and like has this frown in it. And it's obviously something he's doing, but it's like you get to see all these little, just like kind of the amazing aspects of the human face in, reacting to things. And there's so many faces here. PTA is a big fan of Jonathan Demme. And if you are a fan of Silence of the Lambs or Demme's films in general, there's a lot of this. Silence of the Lambs is the best example of this among Demme's films, this direct to camera close up. And PTA does that multiple times here in this movie as well. So there's just this incredible power of seeing someone's face, especially like the emotional moments, like you said, these moments towards the end with Leonardo DiCaprio, Bob, his character, and his daughter, and just some of these moments. And by the way, speaking of the daughter, this is the same actress. I think the only thing she's done before this, she was the daughter in Presumed Innocent, the Jake Gyllenhaal series. And she's a big part of that show, by the way, but she did not knock my socks off. She was fine, young actress, giving an average performance. I got to tell you, I was amazed by this woman's face, that steely demeanor, her eyes. You see her thinking all the time. She like absorbs like really horrible news multiple times here towards the end of the film. And you see her process that. She's face to face, inches away from like Sean Penn and these other really seasoned actors. I thought this girl was incredible. She could like hold the screen all by herself. She's like practically a teenager. It's an amazing performance.
I got to agree with you. She was absolutely stunning. And the fact that her character was brought up with this knowledge that her parents were revolutionaries, and right. She's got all these, she has to remember these codes. And I think she's about 16 in the film.
The actress 17. Is like 20 when she made the movie, but yes, she's supposed to be 16 in the movie.
And so she's been like bred all through her life to be prepared for the moment where she has to run or where she has to say these codes. And you can, as you say, you can see her thinking, finally, she needs to act, she needs to do this, and she does it all really perfectly and takes every challenge or every battle on as she goes through, and ultimately comes out on top.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to get into spoilers here. We don't have to spoil too much, but I just want to warn the audience, if you haven't seen the film, you should definitely see it in theaters. If you are wary of the politics of this film, I would say that it's not really a political. I mean, it definitely is a political film, by the way, but I don't think its politics are as, the right wing is reacting in a way that this is like glorifying and taking the side. In some ways, it does take the side since they're protagonists of these terrorist organization, basically. But I don't think that's the point of the film. And I'll get into my thoughts on that when we get into spoilers. But I'd say if that is keeping you away from it, or if you think maybe this material is too heavy, even if you're not politically averse to it, just the fact that you don't really want to see this on the screen. I got to tell you, when I walked in there, I could not believe how contemporary the film felt. It felt like it was written 2 weeks ago. Yeah, even totally. Though it was made 2 years ago, which is kind of crazy. But it felt uncomfortable. I'm like, wow, like this might be unintentionally maybe hitting a raw nerve or something. But I think it addresses its politics in a really interesting way. And then, but goes beyond that, right? It's about us all collectively just trying to find a place in the world and have meaning, and how these things that we think are meaningful maybe are false narratives. And in the end, all we can do is be good to the people nearest to us. And I think that's was really it touched me, honestly touched me by the end. All right, so let's kick off and talk about a little bit of spoilers here. So I want to talk about the music here too, and it ties into this first section of the film. So speaking of incredible performances, Teyana Taylor, who is like a R&B singer who just recently transitioned more into acting. And I have not seen, there's this movie called 2002 or 1001, I forget what it's called, based on a true story that won her some awards a few years back, a small movie, which I have not seen. But now I'm definitely going to track it down now, because she's the first person we see on screen in this movie. And she is really the protagonist of the first third of this film, probably. And it's very important that because she is, you have to believe that these men are so fixated on her, and that they will throw their lives away basically to be with her. And these are multiple men. That's the case. And I think that she kind of captures that without, there's a femme fatale simplicity to that portrayal that could be she's just bad news, guys, that I can fix her type mentality, and how you can't. But there's something more complex going on with her. And I got to say, there's at least 5 absolutely stellar performances in this film. And she's one of them. And she disappears. And once again, we're in spoilers here. She disappears pretty much after that first third of the film. But she kind of haunts the rest of the movie. And she really needs to make an impact in that early part of the film. But yes, it's a pretty incredible performance. What did you think about her, specifically Perfidia?
Perfidia Beverly Hills, yeah, incredible. Yeah. Just the shot of her when she's pregnant with her belly out, firing machine gun. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so awesome. And it really sets up, her power when she first meets the Sean Penn character, and she tells him exactly what to do.
Right.
You can sense just this sexual violence chemistry that is going on. And I was very, very surprised. I kept waiting for her to come back.
Yeah.
And I almost thought that she did come back to meet her daughter later in the film, but it turned out to be a different character. But yeah, so powerful, and did exactly what she needed to do in that first half or first third of the film to really put these men in motion.
Yeah, and I think that there's something, and maybe that's a question I have for you. Do you think it's unexplored? I think they give you just enough hints, but I have heard people say that maybe this is very much, and of course it's PTA, who maybe, he has an African-American wife, and maybe he is, telling on himself a little bit, that he, questions his own fixation maybe on this, or sees it as a fetish, because that is seen here, that aspect to the relationship, definitely. and how that changes over time with his relationship with her as well. But I think that there's something. Do you think there's enough context for her psychology? Because there's a big question mark, right? Of course, of like, why does she have this relationship with Bob? Is she just, I'm sorry, not Bob, but with Lockjaw? Because does she? Because for me, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but for me, it's like I think that it's not just that she's being coerced by him and she's making the best of the situation in some way. I think that there is an attraction she has because what she wants through all of these activities of hers is power, and she has power over him. And I think that is seductive to her.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Lockjaw, as we see, has aspirations to be one of the most powerful white men in the country, and he shows how successful he is at his job all throughout, and she identifies that straight away. And there's definitely a sexual chemistry between them that she does not have with Bob,
Right.
and her relationship with Bob is something completely different. And it's just so funny. Sean Penn's his character's name's Lockjaw. You're talking about him constantly chewing and moving his mouth while on screen, and what happens to him later in the movie. It's just it's quite amusing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And then, of course, like you mentioned, she also has this relationship with Bob. Bob almost is like, hey, I'm good at whatever, making bombs, electronics, and he wants to feel like he matters. So I think that is one of the themes here as well in the film, is like trying to seek out some meaning, and how you drift into these different, you can imagine, not to this extreme, but there's plenty of people who fell into a particular political organization in their college, let's say, because there was a girl that they thought was cute there, or they, hung out with these people on a regular basis, and then they kind of go with the flow of the politics of it. Now, I don't think most people would actually turn to terroristic acts, but I think it speaks to the fact that the person you are when you're younger. I think that is, by the way, a huge underlying theme here. The person you are when you're younger is so significantly different than the person you are later in life. And Bob, obviously, you see him in that jump cut, that incredible jump cut 16 years later, how he fundamentally is such a different person. And of course, life has beaten him up and he's laying low, and he doesn't have his tribe anymore, right? Of course, which disconnects him from any of his passions from earlier as well. And speaking of that, I think that goes back to Perfidia, who maybe just, whether she believes all the things she says or not, this is just a way for her to feel empowered. And she has all this magnetism. She has these men attracted to her. She has everybody. Their whole group sees her as a leader. And then all of a sudden, that role has to change. She suddenly has to be a mom. And that like breaks her self-identity in some way. And she turns her back on everybody, right? She betrays her compatriots. She, abandons her daughter. I've abandoned my son. I just watched There Will Be Blood recently, but so she, I should say, I think she has a loss of identity. I'm curious how women will react to that. Did your wife have a feeling about that at all in this early part of the film, or did she mention it?
We didn't specifically talk about it, but she did identify with that character very strongly as a strong woman that she is. And I think, yeah, I mean, we've been through that when you suddenly become a parent and you wonder what your role is. I know my wife did too. It gets to a point where you're like, what am I doing? I got to go back to work. I got to, have a purpose again. And you got to absolutely support that. But yeah, very efficient storytelling when there's a heist or a bank robbery that goes wrong. And there's a character in that heist called Jungle Pussy.
Yes.
And I think she is also a musical artist that and some of her lyrics appear throughout the film as well to inform this kind of black powerful woman's idea. Yeah.
That's a great scene, by the way, when she is quoting some of her own lyrics there while she's performing, and she's like showing her face, going like, see, I can show my face. This is my power. And she's really the height of her power there, really feeling like she's untouchable. And that's when things immediately the shit hits the fan. And, when Perfidia herself shoots this security guard. And then we have the first incredible car chase. It's so funny. I just watched that a new film with Mark Wahlberg that just premiered. It's from Shane Black directed it, and it was just terrible. I was so disappointed with it. And it has a CGI car chase, multiple CGI action sequences that are just, it's just car chases, most of it. And I'm like, why would you do this with CGI? I just don't understand. And to that point, we just watched, I asked you to watch To Live and Die in LA earlier this year when it became available for streaming for the very first time. And here, when you see them escaping from that, heist gone wrong, and they're just driving through Los Angeles and smashing into cars and smashing, like literally just riding between cars, trying to make the light or just very basic, actual driving with actual cars colliding with each other. And the intensity of it is so immediate and so powerful. And, it's way more. When they like accidentally turn a corner and slam into the back of a van, it is way more exciting than all that cheesy CGI that I just saw in that movie I watched. So it's like people just need to learn to just do things practically as much as possible.
Absolutely. And the damage that is visible in the next shot, it's not like this magical car. And it reminded me of my driving in Grand Theft Auto when I'm just useless at it, trying to get through just at the lights. It also reminded me of Ronin as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, To Live and Die in LA, Heat as well. Just this, just this immediate action that you feel like is real and no CGI. Absolutely, I can't agree more.
Yeah, it was an incredible. That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the car chases, because we have that drawn out one at the end, which is so incredible as well. And then Perfidia turns on the rest of her team. By the way, Perfidia is a famous Mexican song, I believe, about a woman who betrays her lover, has basically a double agent in a way. And also the song Perfidia is performed in Casablanca. If anybody, wants to have a little bit of movie history there and just see where PTA is making these references to, because of course, Perfidia, also another woman torn between two lovers. So a little bit, it's right there in her name the second you meet her. And then, of course, this sequence. I want to talk about the music for a second. I did not mind the Johnny Greenwood music at all. As a matter of fact, I definitely felt it like pushing through the movie multiple times, but it worked effectively. It like ratcheted up the tension to amplify what I was already feeling. So I really liked the way the music worked, even when it started to intentionally become like more atonal and grating in some ways, and then would settle back into this kind of rhythm of the drums, and then back into this kind of that incessant piano hitting over and over again, more atonally each time. And that really like got my pulse going. And it made me think about another movie we watched recently, which was Highest to Lowest, and how absolutely awful the use of the incessant music was there in that first section of the film. And here it is, another film that has this incessant music for the first 40 minutes or so. And I thought worked really expertly. It's interesting to hear your opinion, because I can totally understand where you're coming from. I was actually surprised in some ways that the music became so overt at different times, but it worked for me really well.
Yeah, okay. It felt similar. Like I just watched The Master as well on the weekend in preparation, and really enjoyed the first half, and then it just completely fell out of it for the second half. And I think, does Johnny Greenwood do the music for that as well? Because it seemed very similar, and I kind of wasn't on board with that. So maybe that's I had a bit of a predisposed hatred for that, but that's okay.
You might have had a little too much of that all at once. He also does the soundtrack to There Will Be Blood also, which I've watched recently, but the soundtrack is not really used in that same way between those two movies. Definitely more with The Master, I think, where they're trying to create like more of a headspace. And then, of course, this incessant music ends. She escapes to Mexico, and one of the greatest, I mean, it's just something that I don't know why, it's just the magic of movies, like those moments that just work perfectly for you. The needle drop from the 16 years later, where his daughter is doing karate with Sensei and Sensei Sergio St. Carlos and Benicio del Toro's character. And Dirty Work by Steely Dan is playing on the soundtrack. And I'm just like, I just don't know why. I was like in the theater, I was just like, God damn, like what a needle drop. It's just incredible. Like it's just, I don't know. It's like just the change in rhythms, obviously representing this change in time. This introduction, like that, like I said, just the incredible face this girl has in that moment, just like that steely expression as she's practicing. And of course, introducing us to Sensei, telling her to breathe, remember to breathe. And all of that with like, I don't want to do your dirty work no more. And just like Bob is just like, I don't do this anymore. Right. And at one point he even says, he goes, I don't get mad about anything anymore. Like he doesn't even remember what he was mad about. And so it's just like this incredible leap in time, and just felt like so confident. I was just like, oh man, we are in for it now. Oh, and by the way, speaking of 2 hours and 40 minutes, this movie felt like an hour and a half. it just flies. Went by like no problem. Like expert, this guy just knows what he's doing. PTA just in the palm of his hand the whole entire time. And it did not feel long at all, not even close.
I'm kind of shocked that Perfidia just disappears from the whole film. Right. It makes complete sense for her character because she is so committed to the cause, and then she is so committed to, well, ratting them out. And then the only thing she can do now is disappear to protect her daughter, I guess. That's why she's doing it. And she's just, and to protect her life maybe. But so interested in where she went and what's happened to her and the kind of life that she's made, or whether she's just died in some kind of revolutionary act. I'm so interested.
Yeah, I honestly thought that we would run into her at some point. Maybe they would need to escape to Mexico and run into her. He had received a letter from her, we find out later on. So maybe he did have some communication with her or knew where she was. I was very curious to catch up with her because I think that would be fascinating. Somebody who was basically, honestly, I think probably couldn't accept the fact that this fundamental change to her identity and even to the way she was perceived by these men who were attracted to her, like she just didn't want to be typecast. And I think that's one part, is the selfish side of it. Like her mom says to him that she's a runner and she's going to run, right? So that's exactly what she does. So there is that aspect to her. But I think you're absolutely right that part of it was maybe to protect the daughter. She didn't want to deal with the fact that she probably knew in some way that this wasn't Bob's child. Once again, everybody, we're in full spoilers here.
This is a spoiler. Big spoiler. Huge spoiler. So not only that, she didn't know that, or that she knew that that wasn't Bob's child, but then like you mentioned, she didn't want to deal with that. It's going to be uncomfortable and she probably doesn't want to actually deal with it. So part of it is her running away, but the other part of it is probably protective, right? If this guy is going to be obsessed with her forever, then inevitably her daughter is going to be in danger. Like if she tries to seek her daughter, she's going to draw his attention to her, right? So I think that there is some aspect of it where, in a way, I think it was purely selfish, but she had a rationale that made it sound not as selfish when you factor that in. Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking about the way the movie seeded the concept that maybe she is not Bob's daughter was very smart. I'm not quite sure when the penny dropped for me where, this is a possibility.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence with this DNA testing machine, so thrilling.
Yes.
And we're told, if it lines up, then there's going to be trouble. And that's where you get that acting between her and Sean Penn, and Sean Penn just going completely kind of screw loose, trying to work out what his future is with these what are they called? The Christmas Explorers.
The Christmas
the club that he wants to join. Yeah.
Hail Saint Nick.
Wow.
There are so many hilarious dialogue moments here. One of them, they're so subtly thrown in here. Speaking of the, Hail Saint Nick, this Christmas Adventurers Club. Is that what it's called?
Christmas Adventures. Yeah.
Which is this group that apparently Lockjaw's been trying to join for a long period of time. Turns out they're straight up white supremacists. And I love when he has his first meeting with them at the daughter's wedding. And the one guy says, now our aim and your aim is the same, to find dangerous lunatics, haters, and punk trash and stop them. No more lunatics. Punk trash. I love that. But he's an interesting character too. You think about Lockjaw and you think, is he like a true believer in his cause? And you see that once he meets Perfidia, he can arrest her at any time. He's like been watching her. How hilarious is it, by the way, that sequence when he's watching Perfidia from a distance and they sees Bob grab her ass? he just loses it. He's like, hold on a second. What's going on over here? He gets like extra escalated. But yeah, he's watching her the whole time, allowing her to not only to like play act at terrorism, they're blowing up buildings in this film. And he just lets it continue to happen because he is just fixated with her and wants to have this sexual relationship. And then when he has this opportunity to join this other group, he's always looking to fit in somewhere. And I guess that's why he joined the military in the first place. And now he has this kind of this next echelon of racism he can achieve, that it's so odd because he desperately wants to be part of this group. Meanwhile, he knows he has a sexual attraction to this black woman. And then, of course, that's what kicks off the whole plot, because once they say, there's no proof, you've never been with a black woman, right? And there's no proof of this. This is literally the impetus for the plot, by the way. He decides to basically activate the entire military to take over this small town in California to track down this girl so he can check her paternity. That's all he wants to do.
And even just when he's meeting with these guys, these Christmas adventurers, whatever they're called, he's too polite.
Yeah.
He doesn't have this easy power that they have because they've been bred into it,
right?
Or they've got riches beyond our imagination. They just have this quiet confidence where he is always he's trying to join the club, and it always comes across that way. Yeah, because he's got this part missing in him. He can't. He just wants this acceptance. By the way, is this movie been released too early for him to win an Oscar for Best Actor? Because I don't know if he's got much competition at the moment.
No, this is definitely going to be in the awards category. I mean, the awards conversation for. Yeah, I think that at this moment, this is the front runner. I think, and everybody's prognosticating, and he is definitely going to get a nomination. And like you said, I don't know. I mean, it's only the beginning of award season, so there's many other films to see, but I don't know. Most of them have been seen by the critics at the festivals already, and I think most people think he's got a very good chance of winning this, especially because it's kind of like a comeback for him. He has been doing some acting, did a little bit of TV, but he hasn't been done anything really high profile. So this could be like a reward for his return. And of course, once this kicks off, we see that Bob has been staying at this town, of course, and Lockjaw's on his way. And all of a sudden, all this paranoid training that he's been instilling in his daughter her whole entire life, he's even afraid to like let her go to the town dance, the school dance. And all of a sudden, Mr. Baked sitting around watching the Battle of Algiers on TV for the 75th time. That's as close as he gets to revolution at this point in his life. And nope, he has to get reactivated. And suddenly all that old training has to kick in again. And of course, very Big Lebowski. He's in a bathrobe the whole entire time. There's definitely a shout out to that. But, this is incredible. The middle sequence of the film is just some incredible comedy. And DiCaprio is so funny here. There is just one hilarious gag after another. When he's on the phone with comrade Josh, the whole entire conversation, absolutely hysterical. When he falls off the roof.
Oh my God.
Oh my god! And then he gets tased immediately afterwards. Like Jesus, like so friggin' funny. Like he just so committed. And then when he's like having his, you know, completely losing it now that he's in custody. What's your last name? Batman. Batman.
What's with those skater guys that he had to follow on the rooftop getaway? I mean, they were just they remind me of Ninja Turtles, the way they were just jumping from
Right.
building to building, and this guy, this stoned, like drunk dude, is expected to follow them, and he had no chance.
I like how chill Sensei is here, by the way, that when he's like, my daughter's been kidnapped. I need to charge this phone. I need to talk to this. And he's like interrupting him constantly to be like, here's what's her name? Here's this other person. Like he's meeting all the other migrants that are going through like this like underground railroad that he has set up for them through his house. You have to take time and politely say hello. And I like how DiCaprio all of a sudden is just like, he like says, "Oh, hi" to the baby. Like he gets out of his own head when he's freaking out about his kidnapped child to like coo at the baby. It was pretty funny.
He's the best, and even though we're following DiCaprio's trouble and trying to get away and get the phone call, Benicio del Toro's sensei, he's got this whole other thing that he needs to take care of because he's got a whole host of people under his wing that he needs to get to a safe place as well. And that kind of happens almost off screen, or you kind of just go through it following DiCaprio. But I mean, they've got bad troubles as well, and a plan that they need to execute. And then Sensei at one point he just opens a beer for Leonardo. Yeah. Just cracks open a beer. Just have this, just chill out. Just doesn't say anything. But yeah, so good. And I could finally understand Benicio del Toro's dialogue in this film, whereas past films it's a bit of a struggle.
You've struggled. The other thing I wanted to shout here with Benicio del Toro, and I wonder if this will help him with this other awards bid as well, is the Phoenician Scheme this year, the other Wes Anderson movie that came out this year, which apparently he had limited time to work on this film because he was making that film at the same time. But he's so incredibly good in that movie that I'm like, man, I hope he gets at least an Academy Award nomination for that other film. And now with him getting the second whammy of almost certainly getting a Best Supporting Actor here in this film, maybe he'll get 2 nominations. That would be an incredible year for him for sure.
That's epic. Yeah, I haven't seen that film yet, but it's there waiting for me.
I like when he's talking about how he has this situation at the house when this is another very funny scene where DiCaprio is crawling on the ground as the cops are driving by outside. And he's like saying, "Can you have a charger? I need to charge this." And he's like, "I actually have to go somewhere right now," because he says, "I've got this little Latino Harriet Tubman situation going on at my place." And he goes, "All legit from the heart, no cash." No cash. He's doing this all for love, not for the money.
Of course he is.
But of course, very funny that they have these vibes going, drinking in the car, and that's like as chill and good as he is at getting DiCaprio, always very relaxed, gets him out of one situation after another. But then they do get pulled over for publicly drinking beers in the car. That's all they needed to do is keep those cans down. They would have gotten pulled over.
It's very relatable. You do all the hard stuff, and then the one simple thing that can always be avoided is the thing that undoes you.
Yeah, and then we get to the end of the film after these very comedic escapes. It's interesting, by the way, the tone control here, because every time we cut to Bob, it's very funny. But then every time we cut to what's her name?
Lockjaw.
No, Lockjaw, but also
Willa.
Willa, right? Of course, Willa. Every time we cut to Willa, it is so tense. Like even when she arrives out on the what is it called? The Sisterhood of the.
Oh yeah, the weed growing nuns, which almost reminds me. There's a bit of Tarantino in this kind of thing, especially with the nuns firing the weapons and also Coen brothers as well. It's like a mix of all these American filmmakers coming together in this film. There's so many things that you could draw on.
The Sisters of the Brave Beaver, by the way, that's the name of the of this commune of nuns. By the way, Willa, if you're being pursued to this degree, and someone asks you if you have a phone, you tell them you have a phone. Oh. And they should not have gone to meet up with the sisters at that point. She should have known better to take her there. So, everybody makes some mistakes here over the course of the film.
Teenage girls are extremely protective of their phones.
Of their phones, very important. I like how that's like a gag here in the film where it's like her dad doesn't let her have a phone, and everybody's like, "Come on, she has a phone. Give me a break." So what else we have after that? So we have that great scene, by the way, when they're waiting for the DNA to be the final results of the DNA. And of course, Lockjaw pretty much has some certainty. Oh, by the way, going back to what you said before, I think that when they cut from that moment in the hotel and then we jump cut to her with the very pregnant stomach, I think the film's telling us right there that he's the dad, or at least opening up that possibility there. So that's pretty early in the film. But while Willa is, of course, Willa has some tough discoveries out there when she's out at the nunnery or whatever you would call it, the convent, I guess you'd call it. That one nun who doesn't trust her, saying, if you're, I'm like, do I look like my mom? She says, no, but you do on the inside because, you're a rat like her. And, she finds that out. Her dad had told her that the mom was a hero, not a rat. So that's one horrible discovery. And then she finds out that her dad's not her dad, and it's this horrible monster. So all of this is just one really tight, taut moment after another. I like the fact that, by the way, she fights the whole time. She actually takes down Sean Penn. I don't know if this was planned or if it was improvised, but she actually takes him down with her hands behind her back when he's dragging her away. He uses one of her, Sensei's takedowns. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
He did not like being the victim of that, did he?
No. But I do like while they're waiting for the DNA, and she says, "Why is your shirt so tight?" And he says, "I'm not gay, if that's what you're saying." And she says, "I didn't say that." And he says, "I'm not a homosexual." She says, "I did not say that, but I do see the lifts in your shoes." Man, this guy's 65 years old. The size of his biceps is pretty nuts.
It was teased earlier in the film, and I was like, I remember seeing pictures of Sean Penn and thinking that he was pretty fit. And it kind of reveals itself through this film for sure.
Yeah, and this all culminates. Once he finds out that she is the daughter, he heads out with this Native American tracker that he's used before. We got to talk a little bit about that, this racist group that he's working with here, which they're like, oh, it's a great tracker, but he is Native American, so they have all these caveats about using his services or not. But he draws a line with having killing kids, so he does deliver her there. I mean, he should have let her go earlier because he didn't have to die. In other words, is the point. His conscience kicks in a little too late for this to play out. But he does eventually kill all those racist guys out at that gas station or wherever they're meeting up, and that's how she escapes with the car. He dies too, unfortunately.
I felt like there was one racial slur too many for him, and that combined with the fact that they were going to kill this girl, he just said enough is enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad he didn't. Like I said, it's too bad he didn't come up with that while he was driving there, rather than afterwards. But that's how it goes. He died on that hill. Oh, but I find this very funny, by the way, and there's something being said here again, the politics of this, which maybe we get into a little bit as well, that there is obviously this cartoon of the left. Like, it's basically everything, the most toxic version that I'm sure there are right wingers out there right now who think that this is what's happening on the left every single day. Antifa is invading. I thought of Eddington, by the way. This is a lot of Eddington shared DNA in this movie, by the way. And so there was, this kind of cartoon of what the left is like. And then, of course, you have this extreme cartoon of what the right is like, in these overtly racist characters. But even there, I like how this is all cosplay to so many people in the process of this film, because when they find out that this lunatic is trying to cover up his daughter that he had with this black woman, and that he's invaded this town, And, that's where we distribute those chicken wings from or whatever they were. And they're like, oh, that's too bad. I love those chicken wings. And also it turns out that one of the guys who's a member, that he's a part owner of this company. So they're like, we got to put the kibosh on this. So I find it, once again, very funny that they're like, we don't want these immigrants. We don't want these other people. Oh, wait a second. Is that affecting my bottom line? We got to put an end to this right now, which is probably the truest thing that happens in this whole entire film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we get this incredible sequence of car chases through the desert, and how, Bob in some ways is just following his instinct. Maybe it says something about his connection to his daughter and these devices they're supposed to carry around that draw them together possibly, or signal when they're close to each other. And somehow he just guesses and just feels out those options, and he ends up getting there just in the nick of time. And I said this in my review, but there's this mantra that Sensei has about ocean waves. And this incredible car chase is shot with this incredibly long telephoto lens that flattens out the landscape. So literally it's like these cars are like bobbing on an ocean, on waves. They're going up to the peak of one wave, and he clears one peak and he sees the other car for a second flashing in the sun, and then it dips beneath. And it's just this, like you said, it's just a straight ahead shot, and it is so utterly thrilling.
It's ridiculous filmmaking. I don't know how you can kind of visualize this while you're writing a script, and this must have looked amazing in IMAX.
Right.
But the focus, how the focus pulls to the road as the waves are kind of rolling in. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, and I mean that's the lasting image that I come away from this movie with. And then the result of the car crash and the car chase and how it resolves was also very thrilling and reminded me of like a Coen brothers type standoff situation. Just stunning filmmaking, and I was just blown away.
The way she gets herself out of that and that final situation is so incredibly cool. Like just that brilliant idea she has of just like using the terrain to, she's just like, I just got to get over that next peak. And she makes it up there and then immediately brakes the car and jumps out and gets, with her gun, and then lays in wait, and the guy peaks and the sun is setting. We've all had that experience of driving in circumstances like this, like when I'm driving up to Vermont and coming around a mountain and then just getting hit straight on with the sunlight. So you're blinded for a moment. And he comes over the peak, he gets hit with the sunlight, he squints and just plows into the back of this car, and is just absolutely genius. And the final moments where she doesn't recognize whether it's him or not, and he's just, trying to be there for her. And just a beautiful reunion finally. And all he's doing, by the way, is he just wants to catch up to her. That's all he's trying to do. And it's just really beautiful and powerful at the end.
Yeah, incredible. And I was just hoping, as Leonardo DiCaprio was kind of coming around the corner and she was just about to see him in her sight, I was just praying and hoping that they would either recognize each other or the singing little devices they had would go off. And
yes, I was waiting for that. Like he would just drive, like she would pass in the opposite direction, and it would, he keeps saying it doesn't work. And then it would work for that moment and he would at least know it. But that's like a total red herring. It doesn't pay off at all. He just found her on his own.
Yeah. Yeah. It did pay off earlier in the film, didn't it? With the Regina King character finding her at the school dance where the things was singing. Yeah.
Another great performance, Regina King, another great performance here as well. So many great performances. I mean, really, even the small parts are just great. Like all those guys in the racist club are so hilarious. Of course, that's not the real end of the film. There's also another section like what happens to Lockjaw. First of all, he gets shot in the face during, before this, the most extended part of this sequence after he delivers, but survives. Like it's like something right out of Terminator or something. And then we see him with this horribly deformed face, which of course is like, telling us that, his outside is as ugly as his inside now. And of course, he like dies. They kill him off after they question him, and he is like happy, like he dies, like thinking he got everything he wanted. Everything is perfect in the world. So he kind of dies, getting everything what he wants in a way, and just dies cluelessly. And they just burn his body unceremoniously. And he has nobody, right? He has a daughter, but I don't think that daughter ever acknowledged him. And I'm pretty sure that Bob still thinks I don't think she's going to tell Bob that he's not her biological dad.
I love that too, because he is her dad. And he's
Right, of
her
course.
dad in every sense of the word, apart from the DNA. Which resonates with me as well, because I've got a stepdaughter, and it's very similar. Yeah, it's I like that bit. But what do these guys do? I mean, he got the corner office. He overlooks the city wherever he was, and he was happy. But you don't know what these guys actually want to achieve in life. They just want to be at the top echelon.
Well, I think that's one of the funny things about it is like when their ideology supposedly is questioned in some way, they're like, oh, wait, that affects my bottom line. I'm not actually going to, use racist policy. I think that's the satire here. They just want to be in this club, and the only person they kill is one of their own. So I think that probably speaks to where they're at. They're just a bunch of, cosplaying fascists as well. By the way, before we get to the very end here, I have to call out this conversation when they debrief him about knowing that he has this daughter. This conversation is absolutely hilarious. And they say to him, like, they know, like, Colonel Lockshaw, this I'm quoting here from the movie, Colonel Lockshaw, did you engage in a romantic relationship with this woman? And he says, gentlemen, I have engaged the enemy face to face in battle. And in the dark alleys and shadows of espionage, I was once raped in reverse. And he goes, raped in reverse. Could you explain how that would work? And he says, the enemy employed deception. I was drugged. And while unconscious, my brain was not working, but my power was. And I believe I was taken advantage of. And they ask him, what kind of proof do you have of this? And he goes, I don't know it to be true, but I suspect that when I awoke, there was sensitivity in a private place and there was some residue of an interaction. And they said, an interaction? And he says, I believe she was a sperm thief. And this guy says, a semen demon? That's correct. She was a semen demon.
The way he says that, of course, he's just like, yep, okay. As if we've come across these before.
Exactly. Oh, a semen demon, of course. Yes, so another hilarious moment there. The semen demon got a huge laugh in my audience. And definitely a little bit of Dr. Strangelove there, right? The what is it? The purity of essence, right? The how that guy, what's his name? Sterling Hayden? Is that the actor's name?
Yeah,
how he's obsessed with like not ever ejaculating because he can't use his purity of essence. Anything else you wanted to call out?
I can't think of anything specifically. I think we've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb almost. I just the fact I don't know, just the experience of watching the film, its ups and downs. I don't think it's an absolute 5-star masterpiece, but I think it's extremely close. And it's just great to see a filmmaker working at this level with a budget at this level and with people that want to come out and see it. Yeah.
Maybe we could talk about PTA a little bit, just for a few minutes of his films in general, because I think that's, for me, I gave this 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. This is, there are a couple of nits I'd pick. There's a couple of plot holes I think could very easily be cleaned up, mostly towards the end, like some of these illogical decisions that people make, but didn't bother me at all in viewing it because it's so immediate, it's so thrilling, and 90% of it is so much fun and right on the money and just perfectly accomplishing exactly what it's trying to do, which I always love to see a director with an incredible amount of confidence being, whether it's Scorsese, whether it's Tarantino. Even if I don't love every decision Tarantino makes, I have problems with his filmmaking as well. But I just when you're in the hands of someone who knows exactly what they're trying to do, and the Coen's a perfect example of this, where every Coen brothers film is absolutely impeccably made and is exactly the film it wants to be. But for me, this is probably my favorite of his. I wouldn't say it's my favorite of his, but I think it's the most successful at what it's trying to do, because I just rewatched There Will Be Blood, and I liked it so much better revisiting it now. But I've never really liked the end of that movie. And I don't like the end of The Master, even though I think I've watched the first half of The Master to your rewatch. I've seen the first half of The Master 5 or 6 or 7 times. I've seen the end of The Master maybe twice. I made it to the end. But, like the first half is exceptional. And he doesn't always know how to end the stories here. And I think this was, I thought it was very satisfying throughout. And I liked how it ended. A real crowd pleaser. And also, I think it's just an emotional film. He's not afraid of showing his emotion here. His films, I've only discovered this recently, and revisiting his films are extremely personal. And I think this is very personal. It's about him and his daughters. He has teenage daughters. He, has a biracial daughters as well. I think it's about trying to connect with that younger generation. And as a matter of fact, Maya Rudolph, his spouse, tells a story about when she was, her mom, I think, had passed away, and her dad, who was white, didn't know how to do her hair. And we see that in this movie, right? We literally have him say, I can't even do her hair, right? So I think that there's a lot that he is subtly, from his own biography, subtly tying in here. And you definitely feel that love for the daughter. And of course, I am also a father of daughter. So I, feel that as well. So I think it's just another thing that really sells the movie for me.
All good stuff. Yeah. It just blows my mind how you can just write a script like that by yourself, have the confidence to direct it exactly how you want to do it, and just do it so well.
Yep, that's true. It only costs about $150 million.
Insane money, really.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for a movie that doesn't have like $100 million of special effects like CGI, it does seem like a crazy amount of money to spend. But then again, DiCaprio got like $20 million. I'm sure everybody here is all, long-standing PTA diehards. There are people in this movie that have not acted in any film other than other PTA films. So I'm sure everybody got paid top dollar. It's like this is the big casino hit for PTA, paying off everybody who's stuck by him his whole entire career. So they all got paid well. And once again, I mean, if the movie had made nothing, and the word of mouth is really, really strong, so it's possible this thing will leg out and actually become a huge hit. I don't suspect that'll be the case, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. There was an essay I read where they were talking about this is the whole point of having large studio movies. It's not to make the big action movies. It's not to make the superhero films. And it's like not a perfect system. But if everybody made little indie movies, you would never have a movie like this. So it's like the purpose of these big studios is to sometimes spend a huge amount of money on a film like this so that it can exist.
And you've got to keep these filmmakers around as well.
Yeah, sure,
I mean, there's only a few top tier filmmakers that are doing this kind of thing. Plenty coming up through, but they don't have the history that these guys have, guys and girls. So yeah, we just want to keep seeing these tentpole movies from them.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, it is a blast. So coming up this weekend, there is the new Monster series from Ryan Murphy coming to Netflix, and it's about Ed Gein. I am concerned, and seeing the trailer for this, it looks like they're leaning into the most obvious and grotesque aspects of the story. However, a couple of things that are intriguing to me about it. One is I found the two previous Monster series, both of them have very flawed, but at moments I thought it was succeeding at getting under the skin of what is the fascination with these stories. A little bit of a critique of the culture of true crime and why we obsess on these stories. And here's the most interesting part. This is obviously about Ed Gein himself, but the cast, when you look at the cast list, they have someone playing Anthony Perkins. They have someone playing Hitchcock. They have someone playing Toby Hooper, making the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I think overtly in this series, it is going to be not only about the original crimes, but how it keeps resurfacing in popular culture. And I think that is interesting, like an exploration of that.
That's kind of cool. You could, because that could come through into Silence of the Lambs as well, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if there is even some references to Silence of the Lambs if they go that far forward in history. But I think that is really interesting to explore, like, what is it about this story that continues to, reverberate, and why are we fixated by them? And that is interesting, like seeing the people who are impacted by it in popularizing it as well.
Yeah, look, I got to say, I struggle with a lot of Ryan Murphy's stuff.
Terrible.
I've watched plenty of the pilots of his series and never continued. I think the only one I really enjoyed was I think he did the OJ.
Yeah, that was good.
The People versus OJ, which I loved.
Yeah, that was good. I agree. That's kind of when I started to try. And did you watch the Dahmer show?
I did not know.
That one's pretty good. I would say if you watch the first episode of the Dahmer show, it's maybe the best episode of it. It is really well made and really not the show you think you're going to see. It is about him getting, his final victim surviving and him getting caught. And it's just like with that person, with the victim, and like basically his day and what happens there at the end. And it is so tense, but not in the way that, like that, for example, the Ed Gein trailer seems to be like really laying into the most grotesque aspects of the story. And by the way, that's something that continues. It's not as successful as that first episode, but something that continues with the Dahmer series is that you see Dahmer when he's young, but you don't really see him at the height of his murdering and glamorizing his murdering. You see him when he's young and maybe what might have led to this happening later in his life. But the rest of the story is told from the POV of his victims. So you get like their whole backstories. So they're not just like this person was killed in this grotesque way. You actually don't see the killing. You actually only get to know them before the killing. And then usually the episode will end where he runs into Dahmer at like one of these clubs or something. And then inevitably what's going to happen. But it's not about dragging out the torture of this person. It's about humanizing them, which I thought was a very interesting tact for that series. So it's not as, it's not as the usual Murphy thing, which I think is like, overly sensationalizing all the time and just being so ridiculously over the top. There are moments still in there that are, off-putting, but I think it's mostly successful at what it's trying to do in that. And I do hope they do a similar thing with the Ed Gein story, especially if it becomes more about like the stories we tell about that original story, which I think is more interesting,
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Darren, thank you again for the conversation. Enjoy your...
Thanks so much, Victor.
Enjoy your vacation. Enjoy your time off.
Cheers. Yep. Hope you can hold down the fort while on the way for a week.
Yes. I'll talk about Ed Gein by myself next week like a crazy person. All right. I'll probably talk about slow horses, something a little less depressing than serial killers.
Yeah, cool. Oh, one thing that I did see this week that's not depressing at all was the Glenn Powell
how is that? I have not seen it yet. It's
show,
on my
Chad Powers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. I started playing. I laughed multiple times throughout it. I think he's quite charming as a bit of a prick and a bit of a kind of nice guy as well. And nothing too deep there, but I watched both episodes straight back, one after the other, and really enjoyed it. So that's something light to offset your serial killer fetish.
Yes, you know what? I will definitely give that a look. The reviews have been very mixed. So anyway, now I'm much more curious to see which side of the dividing line I'm on.
Yeah, if you like what he's doing, you're gonna have fun with it. If you don't, it's not for you. Yeah, I'm a sucker for sports shows like that because it's very Ted Lasso, trying to be Ted Lasso,
of course.
For that stick show that we just watched,
Stick as well, which I thought was pretty good. I liked Stick.
I liked it too. Yeah, I watched it every time it came out. I was right into it. So
Stick is an example of like not the reaction that I've seen here. Stick was very much the reaction where its reviews were very like meh, and I was the same way. Like there were multiple times where I'm like, I might quit this show, but I hung in there, and I got to the end, and I'm like, that was pretty good. If that comes back again and there's nothing else on TV, I'll watch that again. Oh, speaking of comedies, one more thing to bring up that's lighthearted. I have not seen any of this yet, but apparently there's like 3 or 4 episodes out already. The English Teacher is back for another season. Have you seen The English Teacher? Did you see season 1 of that?
Yeah. Love season 1, and my wife's been bugging me to watch season 2. So yeah, we'll probably get onto that tonight, I reckon.
There you go. So yes, so some comedies to clean my palate after I watch 8 hours of serial killer.
That English teacher was so funny.
So
When
funny.
the kid comes up to him, he's like, I don't know how to come out as gay. And the guy's like, I came out as gay in the 90s. You guys have got it so easy now. Just go out in the hallway and tell everybody you're gay.
You just
No
tell
one
everybody.
will care.
Yeah. Speaking of like comedy that like hits both sides of the target, like the when they have like the gun club in the school, which is absolutely hysterical, just the concept of having a gun club in the school, but then the protests against it are equally hilarious. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Well,
So
let's
I
hope
mean,
season 2 is is just as funny, because that was a great show.
yeah, I can't wait to see it. And so that's another thing for everybody to be aware of. There's just so much stuff out there now that it's hard to pin anything down. All right, Darren, thank you again.
Okay, cheers, Victor.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.